purchasing information into the chat. And as I said, that's information. If you lose it, don't get it in time, and want to buy a book after the reading, you can find that on our website. Um, this meeting will be recorded once we get started, just to let you know that. So if you want to go to just a blank screen, you're welcome to, or if not, just keep your videos on. Once we begin, you will be muted, and we invite you to unmute yourselves after the three readers have finished, and then again following the open mic. It's a little awkward because people are sort of kind of clapping, and then it's not exactly in sync, but we do like the feeling that people are really out there. So, and as I mentioned earlier, we are going to have breakout rooms after the open mic. You're welcome to stay for that. We'll be in those for about 5 minutes, and then briefly rejoin with everyone who's still around. So I think we're going to get started. Does anyone have any questions about logistics before I begin?
Wendy, I'm sorry, I missed what you said about the open mic. We'll just have the applause at the end.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, people can unmute themselves at the very end. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Well, our first reader is Robert Carr. And Robert is the author of Amaranth, published by Indolent Books, and The Unbuttoned Eye, a full-length collection from a Taos Press. Among other journals, his work appears in the American Journal of Poetry, Ninth Letter, Shenandoah, and Tar River Poetry. Robert is poetry editor with Indolent Books, based in Brooklyn, and recently retired from a career as deputy director for the Bureau of Infectious Disease and Laboratory Sciences at the Massachusetts Department of Public Health. Wow, you got at it. Quite a time, huh? Links to purchase The Unbuttoned Eye can be found at robertcarr.org. Please welcome Robert, and Robert, please unmute yourself.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Let me just say it's such an honor to be here with you and to see new and old friends. As Wendy described in my bio, I find myself bracketed between two pandemics: the HIV pandemic, which brought me into a career in public health, and the COVID-19 pandemic, which we're all experiencing now. My book, The Unbuttoned Eye, is an exploration of my experience through the 35 years of the HIV pandemic as a queer man. And I'm trying not to overconstruct parallels between the COVID-19 pandemic and the HIV pandemic, but the poems that I'm choosing to read this afternoon draw some of the underlying themes of human experience through pandemics, regardless of whether it's a bloodborne pathogen or an airborne pathogen. And one of those themes in particular for me is that it heightens the reality of oppressed people within a pandemic. This week is the 22nd anniversary of the murder of Matthew Shepard, who died in Wyoming on a fence because he was a gay man. And that experience of oppression is really something that we're seeing across so many lines, including race, including class, including gender. And this first poem is called Fence. On my May walk, I pass Frost Farm. Maine sassafras leaves, fairer than summer, tender, pulled and chewed. The abandoned homestead, empty can, serrated edge, pondered against a wrist. My teeth are green with walking. I pass wild asparagus, smear mud bear prints into shoe. I stop beside a wispy hunk of skin caught on a barbed wire rust. young men hooked on fences, my breath in gaps between bone. In my life, I've seen queer things moving, shadows of outstretched rib, sons, old friends, the cattle scraped from muscle. I push a gate, swinging, take the light-haired patch from wire, let animals pass through as if they are alive. The skin is not a cow. I name it Matthew. The white-tailed deer jumps and misses the mark. The dead dog hunts for what yanked loose from skin. Burned closet full of clothes. I wear a spotted wrinkle on dying hand. A quiet breathing blows beyond the fence as fiddleheads unwind to fern. I kiss the hide. Listen. High-pitched calls. Boys that left the farm. The first poem I'm reading from The Unbuttoned Eye is a exploration of the events that happened early in the epidemic as sort of punitive governmental measures against gay men. And the reason I frame it that way, having recently retired from a 34-year career in public health, is that I believe that whether it's the HIV pandemic or the COVID-19 pandemic, you have to acknowledge the realities of people's lives in order to have an effective impact on any kind of pathogen. One of the things that happened in the early HIV pandemic is that all of the bathhouses and sex clubs and sexual venues for gay men were shut down in major parts of the country. This poem explores that reality and has an epigraph from the San Francisco Chronicle, October 10th, 1984. The city's public health department director today ordered 14 bathhouses and sex clubs catering to homosexuals to close immediately, saying they were fostering disease and death by allowing indiscriminate sexual contacts that could spread AIDS. 1. I whisper the closing of cauldron. A locker key, blue bungeed, tight, cutting blood to my bare arm. Every night, unzipped pull to unlit baths. A gurney in the street, red blue spin of siren repeating. The weather girls wailing. It's raining men. Hallelujah. By 1984, I forgot how to feel. Every night, I slipped a pin in a different finger, tasting 10 perfect beads of blood. I cut back on screwing, though risk made me hard. 2. Each time I slipped a finger in another man, I opened, hovering over that long song loop, his spine. Wave of nausea, blackout, slippery buckshot, and we believed CDC bullshit that no one could be trusted. The night before the cauldron closed, I stepped out in the alley to blow satin skin through smoke. Rocking trash cans clashed with fear of switchblade and suck. I considered it practice for when the sex clubs closed. 3. Driven into streets, we all got used to shooting under stars. Big, beautiful voices sang in my head, the street's the place to go, 'cause tonight, for the first time, just about 10:30, for the first time in history, it's gonna start raining men. I fucked in countless numbers, blades of park grass. For the first and only time in history, I bottomed, saw a muscle man running into an open eye, his pupils face up, pinpoints. 4. In the end, absolutely soaking wet, In the end, uninfected, pretending every sort of light, mouth pit air and skin lesions are supposed to appear black. Decades in waiting rooms, sitting under fluorescent, a broken chair, a chant. It's raining men. Every specimen drawn from my body every 6 months by a needle, not a pin. Decades bled, protecting my tall, blonde, dark, and lean. A single room, throbbing vein, tied off rubber rope. One of the elements of the HIV pandemic was how, in the context of the threat of death, does one preserve a positive experience of the erotic. And the next poem I'm going to read was very, very early in the pandemic. I've actually moved in my retirement. I've moved to Maine, so I'm coming to you from central Maine, which is where I started. I went to Bates College and then moved to Portland. And in Portland, in the early 80s, at a bar called the Underground, I met a young man who was very attractive in his sadness. And what I learned was that he was with his partner at Maine Medical, and his partner was very sick with HIV disease. And I had never encountered HIV disease because that was the moment where people were saying, this won't happen here. This only happens in New York. This only happens in San Francisco. Font. I like your blonde curls in bar light. The silver foil peels from a beer. There's a little ocean in your green eyes, a lot of sad. You talk about the drive down from Skowhegan, pulling over twice so he could heave. A long day of waiting at Maine Medical, beloved backbones, a constant reminder the body once had weight. I take you to my room, the Motel 6 in Portland. You whisper how he's lost the strength to walk, so for weeks you've carried him like a child learning a waltz. You tell me how, lifted from the bed, he places lesioned soles on top of your feet, how you walk backward toward the bathroom, how in all those weeks you haven't cried. You roll white socks, slip them into Reeboks. After apologetic sex, I tell you, get up. Towering. I tell you, put your feet on mine. Arms wrapping shoulders, cheek against chest. I walk us to the motel window. Listen to your jag of breath. Whimper of weeping for a man I'll never meet. I memorize the font of a red 6, the cigarette smell of your hair. We're all examining sort of our place in the world, and particularly witnessing the suffering of our elders through the pandemic. And the set of poems I'm going to finish with are addressing some of that. The first poem, my father, who is turning 93 in January, and who is actually in the living room behind me. He lost his wife, and I lost my mother 16 years ago. And one of the things my mom did before she died was she fixed him up with her best friend, Rosemary. And they've been together for the last 16 years. Unfortunately, in the last 3 or 4 years, Rosemary has started to develop dementia. And this poem is to all three of them. After mother dies, most men need a lover. Father's lover sits on a paisley sofa where my mother rested before she went to bed and died. It's been 16 years since the water ran, since my mother refused to get out of the shower because hot water felt so good. In the intervening years, my father's lover has lost her mind. She says the most beautiful things. Today, she said, I know I love you, but I've forgotten your name. I'm very conscious of a parallel again between the HIV and the COVID pandemics, the ways in which people who are infected are isolated from each other. And I know we all know those images of people with their hands against glass, families who cannot be together. I'm with my dad, having recently moved to assisted living. I'm very conscious of that. From the VA, this poem recently appeared in Shenandoah. From the VA. The woman has stopped screaming, "Ma, Ma, Ma," across the hall. He can't get a break from the sack of gas that snores behind a shared screen. The mounted TV just declared the country's dead. He's sick, throws up warm water, presses nurse's buttons, gets ignored. He flips a tray to the floor, makes noise someone might notice. He uses bed controls to sit up straight. Outside, red and white stripes twist and waver, a tattered fly end of the flag. Through caulked window cracks, he listens to snap hooks clanging against the halyard, against the VA flagpole. High wind, a dust cloud, the Commonwealth blue shield, white field, whips beside Old Glory. Who hasn't he told to drop dead? From the metal of his bed, the flags are all half-mast. He hasn't seen his children since the snow. And this is particularly for the women who are in the same sort of situation. The shared room. His mother sits on the edge of her metal bed. She's topless, packs a suitcase to go home. She does this every morning, then unpacks every sundown. Threadbare breasts hang low, and she's crying for an eldest son to suckle. She's forgotten where he is, but remembers he's tall, and she can't see him. She visits herself through locked windows. Grandchildren no longer complain in corridors of funk. His mother thinks she hears her own laughter in the courtyard. The old lady sharing her mirror has recently stopped breathing. On the bedside table, all that's left of her reflection is a yellow crocus made of silk. In still air, part of her rolls down a hallway of wheeled chairs. There is no view through glass fogged by her exhale. In the shared room, she hates cut flowers, refuses to watch them die. The poem I'd like to close with, and again, thank you for your time and your attention today. Through it all, whatever the outcome of pandemics, the thing I'm discovering is that there's love. And I am blessed to have been with my husband, Stephen, now for 32 years. We've been married as long as it's been legal. And there are unique qualities of a marriage that I've tried to capture in this final poem. I'm reminded of what I've forgotten. Squirrels scatter nut chunks from the giant hickory tree above the drive. Walking the dog, you remind me of little things I've failed to do. I hold a braided lead. You slip on bitter shell. Could you sweep this up, you ask? Have asked for several decades. It takes bristle to care for other than yourself. The oven heated to 350 after dinner's done. You want this on? Bedroom windows as we leave the house. You want these open? Back door unlocked the morning after I'm home late. Could you do something about that? I answer, apparently not. I've learned a few things over years. The toilet seat is always down, the 3-ply paper over, not under. Lies have consequences, and more than one chest beats with a heart. On our walk, you stoop to pick up shit. Fresh shaved head, spots of red on a fair scalp. I'll miss the reminders, so please, don't die. I have never brushed a bath. Nothing will be swept. Meals will burn. Wind and rain will pour through every opening in the house. Glass picture frames exploding in the hall. My bleeding fist. The sink filled with coffee mugs. Rot in the fridge. Even my body will smell different if you go. Thank you so much.
May I speak?
Thank you so much. Those were incredibly powerful poems and right on the pulse of today and the amazing parallels to with HIV and all the cognitive dissonance that we're living with, all the intensity and the heartbreak and the love. So thank you. That was really.
Am I allowed to ask a question at this point, or?
I I think we really haven't made a plan to do that. But hey, why not? Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, question number one, his first poem about the HIV problem. What was the name of that poem?
So the first poem I read was called Fence, about Matthew Shepard.
No, yeah, well, that's the one about the.
So the HIV pandemic poem was Obad with Pin, which is part of the collection, The Unbuttoned Eye.
All right. And then my next question is, it struck home with me because I read a play, and it's so familiar with your theme and your words and your witnessing. And it was called Angels in America by Tony Kushner. Have you ever seen that or read it?
Yes.
Do you see similarities between that and what you've done?
I think there's a generation of people who lived a trajectory that's similar, and I think many of them are here today. So yeah, I'm very grateful that you're seeing those parallels.
I saw so many parallels. But
thank you.
Thank you for what you've done.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you again, Robert. Our next reader is Hannah Larrabee, and Hannah's collection Wonder Tissue won the Airlie Press Poetry Prize and was shortlisted for 2019 Massachusetts Book Award. She has a recent chapbook of epistolary poems exploring climate change and spirituality. out from Nixes Mate Press, and new poems in Voices Amidst the Virus, Poets Respond to the Pandemic, just released by Lily Poetry Review. Hannah has written poetry for the James Webb Space Telescope program at NASA, and she'll be sailing around Svalbard in the Arctic Circle with artists and scientists in the fall of 2021. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
And you can buy Wonder Tissue directly from Airlie Press, www.airliepress.org/Wonder Tissue. Welcome, Hannah.
Thank you, Wendy. And thank you so much for having me read today, everyone at New England Poetry Club. Thank you also to Robert for those powerful poems. It made me want to dig up a Matthew Shepard poem of my own and revisit that as well. So very great, powerful poetry. Thank you. Especially the marriage one. I think many of us can relate to everything in there. So I want to start, and also I did want to note that one of the benefits of Zoom meetings is that family and friends from far away can join. So hopefully I have some family members I know that are tuning in today, including maybe my two little nieces. So it'd be great if they're here and listening. The other downfall though is my dogs are here in the living room just hanging out, and they may be fired up by something, at which point you'll all know. She's very loud, one of my dogs. So I hope that doesn't happen, and I'll get right into the poetry. I'm going to start with a poem about the supergiant star named Beetlejuice, which was named Beetlejuice far before the character existed in the movie. But it made the news back when something like a supergiant star would make the news, because it was dimming, and astronomers were sort of speculating that it might explode soon, become a supernova, in which case we'd be able to see it even in bright daylight in the sky. So that of course piqued my imagination quite a bit, imagining seeing this exploding star even in daylight. So this is called Beetlejuice. You don't need to understand every little thing about what is happening. Start with the base observation. Beetlejuice has dimmed, like the world around us, in our favor. And if it explodes, see, despite all studies and the infinite blazing core of feeling, you will simply witness a signal flare, even in daylight, something elaborate and strange, like our capacity for forgiveness. The tear inside you, a memory light years close, a person even closer, and sometimes for no good reason. But if the gifts around you are taken for granted, they could burn brighter, only to vanish. And have you prepared yourself what lies at the heart of the word love? Because I have not. And because I have not, I too will blister the sky. All the power and all the fuel in me collapsing until there's darkness, where once I was the bright elbow of a thing you mapped out in the sky, a human constellation. To feel closer to some kind of home, like anything, like every single thing in each scenario of every possible world. And for that, you should forgive yourself. The next poem I'm going to read is a creativity poem. I wouldn't call it an ars poetica, but it certainly explores the idea of where creativity comes from and how we express it. But it is about Artemisia Gentileschi, so a Baroque Italian painter in the 17th century. I think one of the best painters of all time, and a fierce human being, and obviously faced challenges as a woman at that time. I wish we could travel, because I think the London National Gallery has a special exhibit of her work right now. So that makes me sad. I'd love to be there. But in this poem, I'm exploring creativity and its nature. I do use a direct quote from one of her letters. She was a fierce letter writer. And that quote in the poem is, "Never has anyone found in my paintings a repetition of invention, not even a single hand." So I was thinking about that in particular, and how in my own poetry, at least, I feel like it's almost the opposite, that I'm trying to say the same thing over and over again in different kinds of poems. So this is Artemisia. I have taken the morning to read about myself by reading about Artemisia Gentileschi and those airplane graveyards in deserts, airplanes that still try to take off with any semblance of wind. And could Artemisia have sold herself on talent alone? Yes, absolutely yes. But then talent is constrained in order to be whatever it is that turns the pages of history, of commerce. A woman is banished in her own way. It is unique to each of us. And I think of her paintings in museum stillness, separated as they have been from her touch, 400 years to think themselves over in the eyes of strangers, remarking about the boldness of color, the weight of shadow. And Artemisia never saw an airplane, at least not in the air. And since I've seen both her paintings, the airplanes, does that make me anyone who could explain anything? No. You see, when I take something in for the first time, I am an ancient, single-celled thing. Lust of senses, something of color or form, lapis lazuli or metallic wing. And as Artemisia said, never has anyone found in my paintings a repetition of invention, not even a single hand. And in finding nothing else to relate this to, I turn to memory, which isn't a thing at all, but like a painting witnesses me where I stand. And I lift a little from my shoes on that air, on that body. I'm gonna take a really quick political pivot, which I almost never do in my poetry, or it's more subtle, but this is not subtle. I am sort of blessed to have an extended family where we all are somewhat in agreement about political things. But I was seeing all those articles about the 200,000 plus Americans who have died from COVID-19. And then I saw some people posting about basically only a small percentage of those people count because they could have died from comorbidities. So anything else that they may have had, so diabetes or whatever else. And that is just horrifying to me. And I kind of will leave it at that. So this is a newer poem, and it is a haiku. When your relatives support comorbidity eugenics during a global pandemic, an American haiku. The blue jay taken today by a red-tailed hawk also had asthma. So that's a brief little political interlude, but I just don't have anything else to say about that. I'm going to go to another newer poem before I jump into something from Voices Amidst the Virus. This is called Kingdom of Yellow Jackets, and it is for Allison, my partner. I did battle with Yellow Jackets this summer, and they kept setting up shop in different areas of the house or in underground, and it was quite something. So it's somewhat about that. Kingdom of Yellow Jackets. I am looking at the small entrance to the underground kingdom of Yellow Jackets, which I imagine to be intricate and busy and less delicate than the paper mache they sometimes assemble with their rough jaws, their diligent mouths. But let's not forget, they are brutish and quick-tempered things, and one left a welt the size of a quarter on my elbow, and another set a fury upon my dog, who carried the sadness of that harm for a full day in her eyes. You are not wrong. I fall sometimes into the ravines of our daily life, its consistency and comfort. Sitting together to enjoy a meal we've cooked, it is an accumulation, a thing lurking in deeper waters, a shark of various sizes and species. And are you asking me to repair, in the most human way of ways, a body I have never felt comfortable in when loved? There have been many versions of my life, and I meet them now in ways I have not before, having stood beside small and ornate pleasures, having stood inside swaths of paralyzing silence. So I carry a bucket of milky white poison at dusk and pour it into the entrance of that kingdom. And as I wait for the Yellow Jackets to emerge, to feel any pain that is due to me for this act of love, You yell to me from the kitchen window to run inside, and we kiss at the door before I walk through it. Just going to read, time check here, yep. I'm going to read a couple from Voices Amidst the Virus, which is that newly released anthology of poems written about COVID-19 coronavirus. And Wendy, I believe you have a piece in here. I saw David's name in here as well. So really enjoying the collection. So I think the poems in here, there are three I'm going to read to sort of focus on the body and, you know, our attention turning inward, essentially. This is called One Theory. If the same dandelion sprouts again in the same field, the honeybee might recognize its sweetness, but will never know. The firefly flashing in front of your face is the same one you see now in the plum tree. I speak of earthly things with such a fierce nostalgia. I replay the losses, memories, stubble of pumpkin vines, my father's propensity for silence. I was not ready for such memories when I used to touch everything. Now touch opens great fissures in me, one person kissing me, touching me, intricate as tangled roots. I have been careful not to take anyone to bed who I do not want to remain in some way. I don't think I will ever be okay with the temporary lending of atoms, the porous and unstructured body of desire. Just once, I'd like to rest with my full weight dissolving into the bed, the grass. Are you interested in one theory, one body, one death, one saturating feeling? I have never considered how many frogs sing from the vernal pools at the ache of spring. To me, it is one song. And I have never needed my body to come back to me more than I do now. It could walk from the fields, around the corner of the barn, straight into my arms. The other poem from that collection was inspired by Werner Herzog's Into the Inferno, his documentary about volcanoes-ish. His documentaries are always about much more than that. And there's an epigraph, one day when your spirit is exhausted, disasters will arrive. And this is called Night Market of the Ghosts, which is the name that was given to a series of volcanoes in Indonesia. It's true then, something this way evolves with all its invisible teeth. Our rigorous and creative confrontations meaningless. Nothing changes all at once, but it changes completely. And to us, there's no difference in mourning. Free yourself enough to ask, am I different? If the same things day after day, am I different? I think I went barefoot in the grass for the first time in a long time. I made some changes to the way I regretted not saying things how I felt them, or not recognizing the way she led me to things. I was so caught up in what would happen. The thing of it is, all around us, it exists or doesn't exist, and we can't tell until it strikes us close enough to hear it breathing in place of our usual breath. I don't want an obscure number of people to die for any reason, virus or violence. I only sometimes feel brave enough to think about how many insects exist at once in the valley fields. Maybe there is something to disaster as recognition of spirits taking up their wares in the night markets. It makes sense to worship a volcano, to withdraw into our own homes at the earliest rumble. That we must stay here is new to us. And I guess I thought the earth would uproot us the way radishes are taken in spring, but I never envisioned the mouth we'd feed. And it turns out there isn't just one. There are so many and so few things to say about them that I feel I've been sent back to myself, like the teenager I used to be, up late, alone, drawing at my quiet desk. And I'll wrap up here with just a short poem from Dear Teilhard. So the letter poems I wrote to Teilhard Desjardins, Jesuit priest and paleontologist. I'm going to actually finish with this one just to keep to time. I read somewhere that it's very rare to have dreams where their cell phones are in it. And it's sort of fascinating to me because we have them with us at all times. And so I started thinking about that, and my dreams are very vivid and often apocalyptic. And this poem is pretty true to things that happen in my actual dreams. So all the poems in this collection are just titled Dear Teilhard, since they are letters. Dear Teilhard, in a dream there were no cell phones, and coincidentally, there were also great fissures in the earth and floodwaters burrowing deeper, loosening woolly mammoths from frozen graves, sending them tusks and all down new rivers of lust, of another kind, the earth's desire, something unfamiliar to us. And so it felt like violence, like we were caught in the wheels of a dark turning. But it was strange. We could not remember how we have been spinning on the earth's surface for so little time, all things considered. And what right did we have to take so much, complain so easily, and to think? We never ask why our phones do not appear inside our dreams. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hannah. Wow. So wonderful. I'm so moved by what poets are saying about this time. It's such an intense time, and your poems really spoke to that. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, our final reader is David Miller, and David's collection Sprawled Asleep was published by Nixes Mate Books in 2019. Poems have recently appeared in Meat for Tea, Hawaii Pacific Review, Boston Literary Magazine, Seneca Review, Thimble Literary Magazine, Constellations, Denver Quarterly, the Lily Poetry Review, Unlost, and Northampton, UK Review, among others. His poem, Add One Father to Earth, was awarded an honorable mention by Robert Pinsky for the New England Poetry Club's 2019 Samuel Washington Allen Prize competition. And to purchase Sprawled Asleep, contact David Miller at dpmiller1955 at outlook.com. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Wendy, and my, Robert and Hannah. It's a sincerely sobering experience to follow either one of you, not to mention both of you. Such heart and such depth. But I must begin. And so I was actually planning also to begin with a poem that is in the same anthology, Voices Amid the Virus. This is brief, and it's titled Foolish Skin. I now require myself to imagine this. New cleansed laundry, each naive sock and t-shirt may be freshly corrupted as my hands empty the machine. My hands have touched ambushing things. So many objects whisper, give me skin. My hands wave in naked ether, innocent in one room, pestilential in the next. And to follow up a bit, masks and dogs. I have recently crossed paths with many people and their dogs, or several in a hydra, as it appears dog walking is an essential service. That is, I do not cross, but bend my path in a neighborly parabola to dodge odd arcs made by no-see-um spit flecks. I wonder what they think of their owners' faces shrouded. It wasn't like that when they were young, the dogs. Perhaps for dogs, it's a passing fashion statement, something they'd sniff out as trendy if canine noses could be bothered with the merely chic. It doesn't seem to matter to them. Maybe for dogs, it's just another dress up, meaningless like mittens or a scarf. My wife and I sport decorative muzzles for daily strolls around the park. The dogs look at us as they always did, which is to say, barely at all. In a sudden world of people with half their facial cues blocked, dogs don't seem to be the slightest bit perturbed. This is not a strange, unprecedented dog year. Gertrude Stein said, I am I because my little dog knows me. If I had a dog to know me, I'd have the self-same face, unveiled or wrapped, as present to the animal as the animal to me. So we'll go into a few poems from Sprawled Asleep, the book from Nixes Mate, and begin with the first poem in the book. Third story roof sitting. It's so geometrical up here. Our house is flat-topped. The other summits in view make a child's drawing of peaks. Wedge tops and gable triangles, asphalt shingled in shades of charcoal, brick oven browns, forest greens scarred from exposure. Up above here, a panorama of three-sided tubes. 7 brick chimneys, sisters of 125 years, sit their squareness as sentinels. Sparrows speed by and lodge on a twig at my head height. Watch them breezing out on that limb. The landscape is pleasure, sidekicked with fear. Vertigo calls from the sudden edge. Without railings, this viewpoint is bordered by neck break. We've watched fireworks, shoveled snowdrifts, paltry feet from the vacant air. The summer afternoon is empty. One dormer window, Venetian blind drawn. Over the turquoise bodega, another's tar beach with pergola, fence, lawn furniture, nobody out. Sounds of motor growl, tire chafe, imperative honks. I'm alone. Rubber roof spread warming my jeans, with cloud clustered green, the maple seed pendants, and this solo seagull suspended. The next poem, the title of the poem is a riff on a title of a poem by the late Lucy Brock Broido. Her poem was titled Leaflet on Wooing. This poem, which otherwise has nothing to do with her poem, is titled Leaflet on Walking. Why walk? Child's slalom around stodgy grown-up legs after church. Granite blocks afford chance foot massage. November leaf muck sets inline rollers beneath the soles. Is walking for me? 5 inches of erupted streetcar tracks. Blue pen caricatures on styrofoam shards wedged into chain link. Swallowed coastline incised in paving stone. How do I get started? Hands off the sofa's velour arm, 2 steps pell-mell face down to the carpet. A stranger's elbow at the curb as the bus sighs open. That swarm behind the breastbone at the doorsill, the old complaint. What about side effects? 5 miles of heartbreak pounded through the ankles. Downpour-drenched clothes worn to the smokehouse. 4 hands become 3 as 2 ramble the sidewalk. Are there support groups in my area? Downtown gaggles baffle the orange wait hand. Thin sidle past double baby carriage as suitcases roll through the portal. Eyes met, eyes downcast, eyes shifted, eyes bore straight ahead. To learn more, graffiti plastered brick factory vanished from the map. Opaque quartz massaged by sound waters. Former opossum crumbled at the stone bridge. Look at the sky. pinned and plunging beneath the flat of a thunderhead, a thick purple bruised ceiling more threatening than night's translucent black. The bus scrambled out from beneath that dark table toward the blue shelf opened at the horizon. I can write thunderhead or write these, horsetails, lenticular, buttermilk sky. What I want to exhale, alto strato cumulus, to know the mundane sky direct as knowing the breath, no study or action of mind. Cloud guides, books for unveiling weather. I have read them, they don't take. For the figure of this very instant, I fumble back to the picture book index. What up above are those again? My want may as well be a koan, assigned by a roshi of atmosphere. I can write misty blue dusk, black ragged puffs in a cluster. They passed over the window glass. Then they dissolved out of my sight, or coagulated, I don't know which. I feel breeze through the screen. It has dropped, and with it, the curtain. I have spent a lot of time on public transportation with great pleasure. I'm just going to up and say that. And I'm beginning to get back to it, and I actually enjoy that situation. So here's a story from one evening. Absolutely no idea. Sorry, she grins to the young beard at her right after twice rolling toward him. Sorry. The beard smiles, doesn't mind her low, sleeveless, diaphanous, whatever. Sorry to the dude with earbuds at her left after half leaning over his lap. Man, too, scowls toward the off-campus short shorts. You keep saying sorry. Her voice at her friend on the phone flows toward tears. Doesn't break, though. 1, 2 subway stops, 3. She half leans up each time, asks, where is this? Standy woman in front of her rides the car floor as if it were Tuesday not party night, which it is. Asks what sorry girl wants, where she's going, what exactly she's doing. Harvard Square she wants. The wrong line, the wrong direction, wrong all of it. Out across the next station platform, having processed more than one verbal instruction, we hope. She unrooted, too easily stripped by the eye. I want her parents, the back seat of their car, her sprawled asleep in a drive home past her bedtime after ice cream. The last one I'll read from this book. There's a man named Ross Boliter, who I've never met, Australian man, a musician and actually a Zen priest. And he improvises with a very large collection of what are called ruined pianos. And you'll hear in this poem what that actually means. Ruined piano, after the music of Ross Boliter. Goggled men in orange jackets take sledgehammers to a bootless piano, a swayback banished to pasture. The only sounds the creature utters, the crackings of wood flown to fragments, whack of soundboard fallen to concrete, or send end over end down 2 flights to the parking lot, carapace popped as a turtle meets a mean boy with a ball peen. These are smashed pianos. These are not ruined pianos. Set a fire inside an old upright. Place it upon a stone plaza at dusk, a fireplace of wood falling to char. Tongueless, strings melted, its only sound, the roiling of flames against air. This is an auto-da-fade piano. It is not a ruined piano. A ruined piano was pushed to the all-weather porch and forgotten, or escorted out to the barn. A ruined piano wandered outdoors and nobody called it back home. Immigrant ruined pianos were left on the shore. A ruined piano waits in the rehearsal room as accompanists stroke the younger piano. A ruined piano won't speak as it should. Stuck zipper voice. It smiles, and a drawer full of forks falls to the floor. Table sawn syllables. Step dance in a suitcase of mud. Chime clusters tuned to its brain waves. Notes fricket back of its teeth. Coughs collapse into its body, ricochet metal spit. Aluminum ice storms, tobacco-wrecked gabble, temple bells made of old pans, horseshoe nails against slate, warehouse of domino fallen, door frames, dump truck emptying granite, heartbeat of ball bearings, clacked bones in the throat. A ruined piano, wedding gift for a perfect pitch mother. A ruined piano cuddles field mice. A ruined piano somehow came with the house. A ruined piano is at least out of the way. And 3 more poems. I think we have time. I've actually got a timer going. This next one has to do with, you may very well have seen photographs of parts of the Statue of Liberty before it was entirely assembled. It was on display in the latter part of the 19th century at fairs and exhibitions, and there were photographs of it on Liberty Island before it was all put together. So isolated parts. Lady Liberty in photographs. The head, World Fair, Paris, 1878. A bust severed just below the breastbone, colossal head denoted Monument de l'Indépendance, flanked by park benches poised for Parisian midday slumps. Men in bowler hats retreat out of her range, staring stock still behind a barrier of bentwood chairs. Others twist up the spiral stair immured within her, poke their petite pates through the gaps below her spiked crown. Skull jewels for a wrathful deity swathed in shrubbery, her eyes sunk beneath gathered brows, deep shadowed on a sunlit afternoon, beneath a corona of impalements. The right hand, Philadelphia Centennial Exhibition, 1876. Her fist erupted from pond bank, loosened to grasp a fire, enlightening the souvenir stand. Bearded fellers lean and loaf at ease for the photographer. 2 of the curious have crept upward through the arm. Out upon the base of the torch, they gander the circular view at the end of the first American century. Flame grazes their heads. The face, uncrated, verso, Liberty Island, 1885. The goddess of democracy's face stands inside out in miscellaneous weeds, propped with a tentative wood frame assortedly knocked together. We're naked to her concave shell. Trespassers behind nose and chin thrust in reverse, her unbroken glare. Lasered pupils slice the ether regardless which way her Egyptian gaze faces. Behind her facade, her skin is black. Next 2 poems are formal. This next one is a huzzle. One thing that we hear when Black people, brown people, frequently are assassinated by law enforcement, what do we hear sometimes? Well, so-and-so was no angel, so-and-so was no saint. And I began to wonder, well, all right, so who are the angels in the case if there are angels involved? Angelic Huzzle. Brethren, shrug your shoulders, yawn. The killed were no angels. Who'll hose the blood away? Our high-fivin' bro angels. Prez gotta have a pick-clutching Prez Bible upside down. Prepare ye the tear gas way, arch robo-angels. One body, brown, 4 hours sheeted silent in the street, flatlined on the double yellow, food for crow angels. Very unfair, says Prez. People to genius me are so unfair. So bless their souls with rubber bullets, status quo angels. Turn in your hymnals to Lord, we fear for our pale lives. Now sing sound cannons, let them blow, angels. Bullets no knock through bedclothes. Justice pink slipped at the curb. I'm sick of your golf junkets, God, and your damned slow angels. We have just exactly enough time, I think, for this final poem. A sestina. Actually, I'm going to tell you what the 6 end words are. We don't. My time is getting tight here, but sestina is based on. There's 6-line stanzas. I mean, most everybody knows this probably. And a set of end words that rotate position from stanza to stanza. And I'll tell you what the words are because it's hard to hear this. Go back where you came from. Go back. The pale people, they who host plague from a world across the ocean, will not go into the rivers to wash themselves. They came from a ship with a flower's name. Back in their own land, do flowers stink so? I ask you, how many times must we show them where to bathe? The strangers insist that linens are where purity happens. Underclothing sucks filth from their skins and they become clean, they believe. You and I must shut our noses from the results. They go to their God's house with dirty bodies, then back to their huts praising. Who knows why they came? This is not their land. I hear where they came from. Women plaster their faces where the pox they carry scatters pits. Keep it back. They must. The air itself poisoned rising from their skins. For face covering fat, they go to executioners who harvest it warm. Would you wear carcass fat mashed with beeswax? Would you swallow a powder of herbs with dust that came from an unburied skull? The high people go, I hear, after dead youth's body parts. Their lusts are prolonged by eating those organs. From that feast, they think, corpses give young years back. What repair will they make to us? What give back? Speak to them simply with reason. Never can you move them to listen. The astrologer priests from their land of illness and guns declare that where sweat makes the pores open, foul air will come in to sicken. That way their race's beliefs go. And are we to sit with them, smiling, go to their feast, hear them give glories back to their God? I ask you now, where in their faces will our guts remain calm? Can you filter pure air away from their breaths? They came here in what is called peace where they are from, but we must force them to go. Tell them, you will carry your pestilence back with your names. For us, nothing is good where your skins come from. Thanks.
Feel free to unmute yourselves and applaud all our readers.
Excellent reading. Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David, Hannah, and Robert. Terrific reading. And now Jennifer Markell is going to host the open mic part of our afternoon.
Okay. Thank you, all 3 of you. It was wonderful to hear you. Really powerful. One good thing coming out of the pandemic, I guess, is some powerful writing. So I have 9 names, I believe. I'm going to read the names. I have Molly Bennett, Condoleezza, Dewey. Feel free to correct my pronunciation. Richard Brennaman, Karen Klein, David Donna, Patricia Carrigan, Joyce Wilson, Thomas de Freitas, Howie Fairstein, Fairstein. And I think that's it. Did I leave anybody out? Does anybody want to jump in at the last minute? Okay, I guess we're good. So our first open mic reader will be, and we'll save our applause for the end for the open mic as well. The first reader will be Molly Bennett. And Molly, you're going to need to unmute yourself. Molly, you have to.
Is that better? Can you hear
Yeah.
me?
Now
Okay.
we can, yeah.
I really enjoyed the readings, and I'm going to read my poem that was actually in the 47th Ibbotson Street, and I heard just last week and that my poem was actually nominated for a pushcart, which I had not heard at all, and I was like, whoa, how about that? So my poem is called Phoenix. Think. Remember back to that tornado that spun and spun the known world till all was seen to be the work of a small man behind a curtain. Here, winter grips minds, we freeze at footsteps. Dread fills the air. We cannot see who or what follows close. We dream of home, a lost place of warmth and light, of comfort in knowing how the edifice stands, that there is bone of iron beneath floorboards, that gravity will not hurl the dreamers down. Alone and together, we watch. There, the summer sun scorches the earth, fires burn, and the wind blows, and all is made waste. Can you whisper to the child some word that all is not burning, that in orange smoke a kangaroo still hops? Can you not despair and perhaps begin to imagine something that can grow in ash? Thank you.
Thank you, Molly. Was that the poem that you were just talking about?
Yes. I decided I had to read it. I was just so blown away. I was on the bagel bites and it was like, you won that thing. And I was like, you've been nominated. I was like, what?
Great poem. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Our next reader is Condoleezza Dewey.
Hi.
Hello. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay, so the poem I'm going to be reading today is called Butterflies. Stillness surrounds me as I walk up on that stage. The audience packed from seat to seat, chair to chair, and a good amount is standing in the back. I prepare everything remotely possible for my moment in the sun. Minutes upon hours upon days of hard work has all led up to this crucial night. I walk up the stairs slowly and I whisper to myself, okay, so far so good. I arrive at the large wooden podium with a small desk light resting on the brim. I give the microphone a few test clicks and wait patiently for my cue. Then the butterflies wake up. Oh no, not now, I say to myself, but it's already too late. They quietly begin to flutter in my stomach before making their rounds to different parts of my already shaking body. They flew down to my legs, causing my bones to rattle, yet my feet stayed solid in the ground. The butterflies then flew upward, circulating in my hands and causing them to quiver, lightly settling in my lungs and altering my breaths. In my face, the butterflies are in my cheeks. I can feel the warmth, but luckily there's no color flush. I turn backstage and all eyes are on me. In the audience, the crowd stays silent, waiting for my next move. I clasp my hands together and I try to steady my breath. In and out. The butterflies start to recede from all the different parts of my body. In and out. They return to their resting place, and a sense of relief comes over me. I receive my cue, and I hold the mic close. I finally finish my great feat, and I wait for the audience's approval. Cheers erupt, and a standing ovation occurs. I feel one last warm feeling, then it fades away completely as I enjoy the feeling of the stage and the support of the crowd. Thank you.
Thank you. You capture the butterflies and take them to a whole other level, all through your body.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next reader for the open mic is Richard Brennaman.
Yes, this is unfortunately another COVID poem, but it's also a sort of a process poem as well. I must hope. Coming out of grief, I have journeyed, grappling onto kind words, others glad intent, not a few facades of care, old boundaries, paradigms, prisons too. A dark cell left behind, winter forest where leafless paths wander, past marshes cold in the wind. I had arrived at brighter days, good fellowship, but now almost isolate again, every errand a risk. I must hope against this night, this plague, hope for the sound of voices, faces, social needs, to jest, though a dark angel walks and we are in existential Egypt, mourning firstborn sons in a time of plagues, as in more unlettered centuries that come to haunt us, along with shadows of powers or principalities. We struggle to see starlight, waiting for doom to come and join our murmuring enemy once again.
Thank you, Richard. Our next reader is Karen Klein.
It's really humbling to be in the presence of so much fine poetry, so much powerful poetry. It's a wonderful afternoon. Thanks to everybody. The poem I'm going to read, Molly, is also from Ibbotson Street 47. And I'm happy to put in a plug for Ibbotson Street and for their valiant efforts to keep that going. And it is keeping on going. The poem I'm going to read, Shostakovich Fifth, is based on a concert that I heard at Tanglewood a couple of summers ago. And it contains my reaction to the music. This was the Boston Symphony there. I had never heard Shostakovich's Fifth performed live. It was a really bizarrely wonderful experience. It also brought up a lot of feelings. And I also had learned that Shostakovich had made this composition under great stress from Stalin, who hated him and wanted somehow to get rid of him. And Shostakovich had to prove that he really was a socialist, that he really believed in their politics and their ideology and all that, and was fearful always of being sent to Siberia, not being performed, and so on. When he did perform Shostakovich Fifth for the first time in Russia, it was wonderfully received. And of course, he was pretty happy about that. But this is my experience. Shostakovich Fifth. Strings pounce on the note, startle the audience to attention. We didn't know what was coming. We didn't know we would drown. We will drown. Through the tumult of horns, a solo instrument, sometimes a violin, sometimes the flute, the ache of its melody, a stiletto thrust that opens memory's wounds and weeps. My baby sister, snow blonde, running after Skippy, her little legs churning. Peppy March, stomping along with its brutal irony, wave after wave, flute, oboe, cello, pulls us out. Woman in front of me, hunched over, fists clenched, unclenched, arms pulse, up and down, up and down. Undertow drags us back within. Old parental voices. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. Clear celeste harp tones wrench tangled knots of childhood. Timpani boils over, cymbals slash through brass blare. We give up, we pin, we beg. The composer begs for release from intolerable, unresolvable contradictions. Exhausted silence. Then, like a giant breaker, the audience rises, roars. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Wish I could go hear it. Our next reader is Patricia Carrigan.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to read from my music collection, Stranger on the Shore. This is my latest one called I Put a Spell on You. Red and gold leaves crushed under my boots. On my iPhone, Nina Simone sang I Put a Spell on You. Halloween was in the air, and during the full moon, witchy thoughts would take flight. The law of attraction needed assistance. Red candles anointed with rose oil, cinnamon, rosemary, and poppy seeds worked up a heated spell, invoked what lived on the lock and key. I made a vow to love and honor, asked the goddess to send you my way. You did come and I was first in line, but someone else walked ahead of me. Love wrapped me in a blindfold, kept me in denial for a week. I confronted you and her, but the goddess favored her over me. My feelings became waxen tears and ash. Red and gold leaves crushed under my boots. On my iPhone, Nina Simone sang, I Put a Spell on You. November's fierce wind persisted. Emotions became icicle tears on the lock and key, invoked the approaching December storm to cover a graveyard of dried leaves. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. Our next reader will be David Donna.
Hi, this is a nocturne. Clean laundry heaped beneath the De Chirico print, lights out, ceiling dim gray, routine hiss of roommate's evening shower. Bobby pins slid free, tick and clutter the bedside table. The clock display shivers its frayed wire shiver. I should trim my nails, should put away the shirts. The periphery draws close. Aches and minor itches rise like brush fires, smoking under a blind fog. Long unspoken to friends haunt from behind the quiet. Phone a charged artifact from outside. Anxious edge of a future chime, the clock stretches out into the room with its red prophetic shine. What was close withdraws, stumble of small thoughts, hunted in starlit fields. I don't recall what I must once have known of those woods they run to, obscured foliage murmurs. I should get gone, or some water. The clock's corundum glow floods the whole room, almost a sound. 0 o'clock, a hollow ocean, gloss-dark cosmos from among ghosts on the bottom.
Thank you. A lot of spooky images and S sounds in there. Thank you. Next reader will be Joyce Wilson.
Thank you. This is a poem about wild turkeys. The wild turkeys return. High-shouldered and bony, they venture near. Their awkwardness apparent in their walk. They stand too big to hide, too shy to talk, yet chirrup to dissuade us of our fear. As they survey this windswept acres lawn, we ask ourselves what messages they bear and what our duties are, if we should dare to shoo them back to woods, their rightful home. If we should seek the lessons they might teach, that once exiled, they now return in force to take their place and reclaim what was theirs. We watch them slowly draggle out of reach. We want to love them, on whom much depends, our gratitude for nature, sunlight's jewel, the notion that their coming means renewal, a second chance for us, their awkward friends.
Thank you, Joyce. Okay, we have, I think, just 2 more readers. Thomas de Freitas is next.
Hello, all. Am I on mute? Can I be heard?
I can hear you.
Good. Really good to be here and really good to hear some powerfully eloquent poetry. This is called 6 in the Morning. 6 in the morning, February, coffee. I stand at the cold porch door and look out on the brooding sapphire of the foredawn sky, pregnant with deep blue light that pales and shines toward the horizon, where the tops of trees, like scriptures in an inscrutable alphabet, imprint themselves on the margin of the day. Stones in the neighboring graveyard begin to whiten and become distinct. Traffic percolates through nearby streets. Sparrows sing crisp matins in the chill. There is a gentle splendor in these hours before the sun blares and commuters rush, before St. Lucy's bells ring Angelus. Yesterday marked the first day in a week I did not see your face or hear your voice. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. It's good to have you back. And our last reader is Howie Fairstein.
Okay. Thank you. This is called Monarch. Anchored to a spent daisy in the forge of continuous summer, an orange and black speckled butterfly had spun her silk pad, had shed caterpillar skin, had burst capsuled chrysalis, and I named her Whitman and water and wind. Her forelegs, vestigial, held close to her body, and I named her fish and sparrow. And when she lifted with a sound of light rain, she flew beyond milkweed stalks, above a caution sign and grooved pavement, unbent, unbridled, and I named her otter and fire. And when she rose among asters and comets, luminous, when she stroked through cloudless blue, unclosed, unbidden, I named her unmechanical. Now I call her mist and dawn. I looked, knowing her gone, a pool of blue shade in her place.
Thank you. Yeah. Wonderful set of poems. Everyone, why don't we unmute and give everyone a round of applause. I think now Hillary is going to put us into groups.
Yeah, so we thought it would be nice to kind of have smaller groups to mingle, just the way we might do after a reading if we were in person. So anybody who is interested in that, just hang out and you'll get an invitation to be in a group, and otherwise we'll see you next time.
Hi, wonderful.
Thanks so much, everybody.
Wonderful.
I'm going to go check on Dad.
Good idea.
Bye, Robert.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye.
Thanks for the great afternoon, and I'm going to bail out and get ready for the rest of my day. But thank you all for being here and for reading and listening.
Love the piano.
Wonderful. Agree.
And if we have a small enough group of us left, then we will just stay right here.
Bye.
See what happens.
I'll stay. Yeah, I have to talk.
Did you guys get breakout room invitations?